Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking over. That means if you guys keep looking, I'll keep making. And today we're back with another video. We're talking about one of the dumbest moves I've seen in recent Survivor history. But overall, I just want to go through the whole episode, really. And we will get to the to this hilarious move. But really, I want to go through the entirety of episode 8, or the second merge vote / episode. And it really, I think it was a good one. I think it was more of a developing episode, a lot of storylines moving along. Vote Out wasn't crazy interesting, but there was things along the way that made it worth watching. But before we start, 72% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed. Let's change that. It's easy and it's free. And if that's so, let's get right into the video. Okay, so to start off the episode, we immediately get the Yase 3 disbanding. Now, in the past, when there's been minority alliances that have been kind of fighting from the bottom, especially in spots in which it was really easy to kind of come back, or even in spots where it was very, very hard, like for example, the Fo 4, or the Tocantins 3, or the I-24. Usually when you have small numbers, you're more likely to stay together. But it seems like that was not the case with this little group of Yase members, where it seems like as soon as they all got out of that merge tribal alive, they're like, whew, thank God. All right, now let's just split up and try and infiltrate the majority alliance and kind of sell out each other, because they obviously felt like they had no shot if they if they stuck together as a 3 and then tried to pull in, for an example, a Heather or a Nasir or an Erica, which I think that they could have. And if that's the case, why didn't they stay together and try and do that? I have no idea. And maybe at least wait until you disband, until you think that you cannot pull in those people that I just mentioned. But instead, they just quit immediately. So they seem to think that they have no shot together and that they can only play individual games at this point. We also get Shan trying to target Evie at this point, and so we as viewers definitely know at this point that Shan wants Evie right now, and that if Evie doesn't win immunity, she's probably going to go home. Next, we have a hidden advantage at the reward challenge. So we cut to a reward challenge pretty early on, in which we immediately get the Game Changers hidden advantage. Now, it may not be the same advantage as the one in Game Changers. We don't know. Because it was never found. But we do know that he had hidden it under the bench in basically the exact same spot, in the same circumstance, in which the person who sits out of the challenge is the only person who really has who's the closest to it for sure. And Evie solves the puzzle in this challenge at the end very, very quickly. But Zaner did not find this idol, and that really confuses me as to why the show showed this entire challenge for zero reason, because Xander did not find this advantage at all. So that was 10 wasted minutes. Like, I personally, as a viewer, I care less if they get grilled cheese or not. So maybe they had done it for the next scene that was shown, because they felt like the next scene was important to show, and the next little Shan versus Ricard sequence was really, really important for them to develop, because that's the only thing that really came out of this reward challenge. Usually they don't show reward challenges unless they really, really need to. In modern day Survivor now, especially towards the late 30s. And so they must have just really wanted to show that Shan versus Ricard feud thing, because there was nothing that came out of this challenge because of the fact that Xander just could not find this freaking advantage that he was looking to the left for. He was looking over or around the bench. Some people are even saying that he saw it, but he just didn't want to take it in order to avoid possibly having like a disadvantage again, because maybe it's a disadvantage. We do know that it's probably not, because the host had said, or Probst had said, that it was a missed opportunity to get the advantage, which means it's probably not a disadvantage. But if you're Xander, do you really know? Because like every advantage that you've gotten has been with a risk or some sort of caveat. And so I do understand if Xander saw it and just decided not to take it. I understand what he was doing that for. I still think you should always take it, and then it'll have like the beware thing in front of it, and then that's when you don't open it. And so we have Evie's team, winning this challenge because of the fact that Evie had apparently done this challenge like in her free time when she saw it on TV. Not to mention that Xander did swap out with Erica at this challenge to go on the sit-out bench and not compete and have no shot at a reward. It could have been to gain some capital with Erica. I don't think so. he had mentioned afterwards that he likes to be with the losers because that means that he can be with people after they lost and they're all demoralized, because that connects them to him. I don't know what his true reason was. Maybe he saw the advantage, got there, and then was like, oh, I don't want it. There's so many possibilities, and I do wish that we got a confessional from Xander. If he did see the advantage, or if in that moment of Xander saying, "Well, this is why I did that thing," in the moment, not like later on, because then it's like we're kind of removed from the situation. In the Shan versus Ricard scene, like we would much rather see that confessional right when he switches, and then cut to Xander instead of like 10 minutes later in the episode. I feel like that's better to have that confessional be right when Xander does his switch. But nonetheless, Ricard comes back from the challenge that he won, and he takes, he eats his grilled cheese out with the winners. He gets his sandwich. I believe that he got his sandwich as well as a few chips, maybe a handful, maybe. And then he comes back to see that Shan and the losers, who, by the way, cried for like a good 30 seconds of screen time, so it's definitely like a half an hour of real lifetime for sure. Her and Liana and Xander, I think Xander was kind of faking it, but her and Liana definitely were genuinely crying about losing the reward. And so they had found some, Nasir had found some papaya, and they were eating it with Nasir. And then Ricard comes in after eating his grilled cheese and just says, "Oh, that looks good." And Shan's like, "What?" And then Ricard just takes some and says, "Yum, yummy." And Shan is not happy about this action. Shan is about to choke Ricard out, and it's so evident by just watching her facial reactions to this. Ricard thinks it's like funny, or like, "Oh, like I'm just taking it," and then Shan literally says out loud, "No one's smiling, Ricard. I'm not smiling, Ricard. That's like messed up, Ricard." She's extremely frustrated with the situation. And it's very evident from a viewer's perspective that this is not something that she's taking lightly. This is something that she is genuinely aggravated about. Like this is genuinely like ruining her day right now, that Ricard had taken this. And to be fair to Ricard's side, this is a small piece of papaya. But I do get like the theory, which is that you just won the reward. You just got a bunch of food. Come on, bro. Like, are you kidding me? But at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, but that's a sandwich. So like, can he just not eat all day after he eats his sandwich? Because that's like nothing. I mean, that's like the same amount of food that you guys are getting. So then, like, if it's the same amount of food for the losers and winners, then what's the point in losing or winning? It's basically like a same thing, and you might as well just save your energy for the immunity challenge. And so it is sort of a tough social dilemma as to whether it's justified or not for someone to go get reward and then come back and eat camp food. Is it camp food, or is it the food of the people who are more hungry than others? That's kind of the dilemma that Shan and Ricard found themselves in. Shan then goes to other people and complains about this action from Ricard. And I think this is where it took a jump from like haha to like, oh, like is Shan like seriously like considering flipping on Ricard because of this? Now we never got those words come out of her mouth, but they wouldn't have shown this for no reason. And so I do feel like this is probably building up to something more important, maybe like planting the seeds for a flip later on, in which either Ricard flips on Shan, or Shan flips on Ricard. And as we'll see later, there's other people who are also getting more wary of Shan. So Ricard isn't alone in his thoughts here. So maybe this is like his reason why, or like his scene where he's like, "Oh, Shan, like I really hate how she's acting in this situation." And obviously later on we'll talk about how Deshawn feels basically the exact same way, but for a different reason. After this, we go right back to the immunity challenge. I don't know how I feel about this. Like, it was a immunity challenge, Shannon Ricard, or sorry, reward challenge, Shannon Ricard, and then a immunity challenge back to back. And so it did feel kind of like smushed together. Like they almost needed a camp scene, so they just kind of picked the Shannon and Ricard one. Although I did think it was kind of weird, and I don't know. It felt, the pacing felt a little teeny bit off for this episode, but that's okay. But we go to the challenge, and immediately Jeff, when Jeff had something covered up, and he was like, "All right, but there's like a twist to this challenge." I thought he was gonna pull out donuts, and then it's like, okay, you like can step down for this. But instead he has a bag or he has one serving of rice under the tarp for one person who wants to opt out of the challenge. Obviously, everybody declines because, like, come on. But then he gets a full thing of rice and says, "Here is enough for every single person for 3 days." And he basically says, "Here is that, but I need a certain number of you, multiple of you, to back out of the challenge, and you guys can negotiate that with me." And so they're like, "Okay, like, how many do you want, Jeff?" He's like, "Okay, like, go ahead, give me a number." And they're like, "No, Jeff, just give us a number." And he's like, "Negotiate with me." And I can tell he got pretty frustrated because he wanted that TV moment of them, like, "Oh, well, like, we'll bargain this and you bargain that," like, but they just didn't even want to play into it. They just wanted the rice. They were not trying to do no good TV moment. This was all about the food for them. So I mean, and I get that, because to them, they're not worried about the TV product. They're worried about eating some food. So I get that. And so I believe Shan steps off the map immediately, and I think Nasir's pretty quick to follow. But then nobody steps up after. They had agreed to 5 people, and so Shan immediately is like, "Yep, I'll do it if you guys do it." And then Nasir's like, "I'll do it." So Shan obviously is very stressed. You can tell part of her stress is because of her hunger, obviously, with her whole her card thing. And so she immediately steps up. And you see Nakar, not Nasir, Nakar. Sorry. You see Nasir step up for this as well, and so now we have Shan and Nasir stepping up for this little bargaining sort of process. They now need 3 more, but nobody else steps up. And so after about like 10 seconds, at least TV time to 10 seconds, probably something more like 30 seconds of dead silence, Xander's like, "Okay, Jeff, well, since they're not going to volunteer, I'll volunteer. And if one person steps up with me, that'll be 4 instead of 5. Like, is that okay?" And he's like, "Yep, like, that's okay, because you guys are showing the value of how valuable immunity truly is." And so he brings his thing down to 4 as long as Xander steps up. And so Xander steps up, allowing Xander to step up right. And so now it comes down to 1 person left. And Ricard, who had been hesitant earlier in the challenge, before Xander's little kind of switch up, then he hesitantly steps forward. And then everybody gets the food. Then from there, we have, I believe, 7 participants in the immunity challenge, in which we get in a very quick one. It was a 4-minute immunity challenge, and when I say it was 4 minutes, it was 4 minutes real time. It was more like 3 minutes in TV time, which is pretty impressive that they were able to drag it out that long. And so we did get a pretty quick challenge in which Evie wins, and so Evie kind of saves herself here, because if Evie doesn't win here, I do think that she probably goes home. Now we get back to camp, and Shan wants to get to Tiffany out, because she's like the next best thing to Evie, but she wants to flush Xander's idol out with Tiffany's vote, and so she wants to do a split between both Tiffany and Xander. And so she really starts to get to work on this plan, and she's really playing very mafioso-esque, which for those of you who don't know, is usually a role on Survivor, or an archetype held on Survivor by usually men who are very domineering, who lead the vote, who lead the charge, who are big targets, and who are type A personalities who decides votes, and like where the votes are going, and tell people who and where to vote at and for. And so she's really taking on this role of a mafioso type of archetype player, and it's really stressing her out, as we see throughout this episode. It's really stressful for her to have to do this, and overall for her, it just gets harder and harder by the minute to do this role, to be this domineering player in the game, because Deshawn has a difference in opinion. So we see now Deshawn, instead of wanting to split the vote with Xander and Tiffany, he instead wants to go for Nasir. So I would assume that means a split between Xander and Nasir, I'm guessing. And so, well, no, maybe it's a split between Tiffany and Nasir. I don't know. Or just maybe a straight up vote for Nasir. But he wants to go after Nasir and spare Xander. And so this is something that she doesn't want to do. Shan does not want to go after Nasir. She thinks that Xander is a bigger threat and that the Yase people in general need to go first instead of Luvu members, which I can understand where she's coming from. And so Shan really shuts down this idea, and this idea overall is liked by like both Danny and Liana. And out of this 4-person Black People Alliance, Danny and Liana are half the alliance, plus also Deshawn. So that's what 70%, 75% of the alliance. But because Shane didn't want it, and because Shane has so much power in the game, she vetoes this idea and basically shuts down Deshawn for now the second time. In how well, no, this is the first time. The second time happens at Tribal. At this point, Shan then tries to go after Tiffany, but then put the decoy vote on, or like do a split between both her original plan being that she's gonna put most votes on Tiffany, but also put votes on Xander to make him flush his idol. But she tells the Yase 3 people that they are going for, first it was, I believe, Nasir, and then she goes to Nasir and tells him this. I don't know why she wants to go tell Nasir this, but she does. Probably because she's very fatigued and not thinking correctly. And immediately Nasir is like, no, do not put my name out at all, please and thank you. Do not put my name out at all. Please do not ever. Like, Nasir is very, very assertive on this. And so she's like, okay, sorry. And then she switches it to Heather. But then this gets back to Heather. I believe she actually goes and tells Heather this, or it comes up in conversation in which she can't avoid it, because Heather asks, who do they think that they're voting for? And then she says Heather. And then Heather basically gets that same amount of like frustration where she's like, no, like, what the heck? Like, what are you doing? And so this is all like, all of Shan's mafioso character archetype playing style is kind of coming back, crashing down on her, which is quite ironic, honestly. And so it seems that like her style of playing that's so domineering is now coming back at her almost in her own face. And it's really stressing her out. And at this point, Deshawn is very, very mad. In fact, Deshawn comes to her and says, hey, listen, I know like this, but I need you to hear me and be able to make me feel like you're not just shooting my ideas down. And so Deshawn comes to her saying this, and she says, sorry, sorry, okay, like, great, give me a hug. They like hug it out and make up in the end here. But then we go to Tribal Council. And during Tribal, it's a pretty boring Tribal. The only really thing that happens before the big thing is the Yase 3 claiming that they are, separated, which is true because they're all very separated. And so we get the Yase 3 basically just being very separated and like not at all trying to form up together and try and come back. So that's what we get from like the first half of Tribal. But then right when Jeff says, all right, is everyone ready? Okay, ready to vote? And as soon as he says ready to, and then Heather's like, hold on, Jeff, hold on. And she's like, hold on, can I go talk to somebody? He's like, yeah, go ahead. And then she goes and gets up and talks to Erica. And then from there, that then creates a bunch of chaos, in which is basically Heather trying to put votes on Nasir, because I think Heather thinks that she's the decoy vote, and that she wants to get votes on Nasir just in case one of the Yase members plays the idol to Tiffany. And so this now causes an entire rupture of chaos, in which Deshawn and Shan's argument from earlier kind of comes back up, in which they're like, oh, do we go for Heather? And then Shan's like, well, no, well, like, yes, and it goes really like back and forth. And basically what happens is Deshawn again gets his idea shot down, or really further. What happens is Shan has an idea, and then Deshawn says, I don't like that. And she's like, well, that's what we're doing. And this causes Deshawn to be like, all right, fine. And he sits down, and he actually, I won't lie, he acts like a baby here. I mean, she then gets down on both of her knees and says, Deshawn, tell me what's wrong. Like, what's wrong? He's like, no, nothing wrong. I'm voting for you. You said it. We got it. It's over. It's done. And she's like, okay, I'm not going to baby you. And that's where it's immediately like, all right. He's like, okay, fine, no baby. And then that's not what you want to say at Tribal. Those are not the words that you want to use at Tribal in front of every single person. And so obviously their relationship is very fractured here. And really, I want to focus on what in the world Heather was thinking here. This is such a silly move, but by Heather to do this, this does not help Heather at all. This only made it so that Heather got. Well, I think Heather probably would have got those votes anyway from the two girls. Maybe she probably got those two votes. She's lucky that she didn't get voted out. But this made zero sense. There's like a moment where it's just her and Heather and talking to Erica saying like we need to give votes on Nasir, and the other 9 people are over there in the huddle saying, okay, like we're like, should we switch it to Heather? That's I don't know what in the world she was thinking. It made her look like a fool, and I think that if she had gone home, this would have been one of the dumbest moves, maybe in the 30s and 40 era. I think it might have been the dumbest move in the 40s era, maybe even post Heroes vs. Villains. Obviously, the Eric and James blunders are probably bigger, and maybe other ones that I can't remember right now. But I think this one would have been up there if she had gone home. But because she doesn't go home here, it's just looked at as like a what in the world type of moment in which she just kind of wasted time here and just wasted attention. Like there was so much attention on her, and I think Shan's like stress of like, oh my god, like I just worked so hard to get this this like split vote to go my way, and now Heather's standing up saying, hold on, Jeff. Oh, like you could see the frustration in Shan's face, and so you have that, and then on top of that, you have this other frustration with Danny, or with Danny, with Liana, with Nasir, with all these people who are like, what are you doing, Heather? And so I do think that this was a move that does not help Heather in any way, shape, or form, and all it does is just kind of plant a seed in people's heads for future tribals. And so then finally the vote happens. There's no advantages played. There's no shot in the darks played at all. And I believe, and again, this is just a kind of a guesstimate. There may have been one extra stray vote for Xander, in which maybe Deshaun casts. And so what we have is, what I think happened is that Tiff and Evie voted Heather, Nasir voted Xander, and I think maybe Deshaun also voted Xander. I think maybe, I don't really remember, but yeah. And then everybody else voted for Tiffany, causing Tiffany to go home in this situation. So now it's official that the Yase 3 are very, very split up. Like they are not at all together. They're not at all some sort of full story in which they just like they were down in numbers, but then at the merge, they played their cards right, and they flipped some people over, causing a fantastic big moves, and like, oh, and now they're all at the end, and Xander wins $1 million. That's obviously not gonna happen now that Tiffany's gone. This now leaves both Evie and Xander at the bottom. Maybe they can team up, but I highly doubt it. It seems like one of them is going to go relatively soon. I'm guessing probably Evie, but it also could be Xander. And I think overall, it just shows that sticking together in those small alliances is better, even if you're at the bottom. All they needed to do was flip 2 people, and now it's a tie vote, right? So like if they had gotten through this vote, which I think that they could have, honestly, because the vote was going to go at maybe Heather or Nasir, and so if that's the case, and they got through this vote, now all they have to do is split or flip two people, maybe Nasir and an Erica. That's a 5-5 vote. From there, you have all the advantages, because now you have Nasir's idol as well as Erica's knowledge of the other side, and then you also have Xander's idol as well as Xander's extra vote. All you're playing against is Shan's extra vote, and so you obviously play your extra vote there, and you play your extra vote there, and if Shan then plays hers in retaliation. Wait, no, Shannon does not have an extra vote. Yeah, so you just play your extra vote there, and then it's a 6-5 vote. And now the numbers at the final 9 would be a 5-4 vote. And then from there, even if a person like Nasir flips back to the other side there, and it's a 4-5 vote, or even if both flip back there, that's a 3-6 vote, in which you could probably play an idol. And then from there, it's all about flipping a person back over. And so they had a path to the end. It's just they wanted to play solo instead. So yeah, I just want to talk about the last episode. I thought it was a pretty good episode, not necessarily very great or not necessarily bad or by any means. I think it's a pretty average episode, and I think really its main purpose was to develop and further some storylines that are going to be more prevalent later in the season, such as a Shan versus Ricard or a Shan versus Deshawn feud that may be incoming. Yeah, but again, guys, give me suggestions for videos down in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, but then hit the little bell and then hit the all button. It's the most important thing you can do, more important than food and water. None of this happens without you guys. You guys are the most important thing in this whole operation, because without you guys, I'm just a weird guy talking to a mic. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.